And we're back here in Toronto, Canada for Day 4 action of the U23 World Championships, part of Next Gen Network's coverage. I'm Brian Jones here with Kevin Minderhout. We're taking a look into the open division for this round with Japan facing off against Great Britain, one of Pool B's, Group B's matchups. Japan heavily favored to come in. Great Britain, though, has been a bit of a surprise, giving Canada a big shock in the first game, almost winning, losing 17-14. Japan, though, a little underperformance. Also losing to Canada, but also losing to Austria early on, not where we expected them to be. But both teams have big names. We expect this to be an exciting matchup as both teams charge on to try to go deep into this tournament. Great Britain featuring tall Sam Bowen, who's been critical for them all tournament long. And on the other side, we have the Jet, Tayu Arakawa. For the Japanese, has been great thus far. Japan starting out in defense, Great Britain to receive.
And I think great, an understatement for Arakawa, racking up 15 goals so far in the 5 games that the Japanese have played.
Winder, veteran presence getting started for Great Britain, finding Joe Thompson, a speedy cutter underneath. We have an injury, looks like a collision. Sam Bowen already drawing a physical matchup. Some call here from Winder, the veteran thrower on the team. Joe Thompson in the center of the field. Thompson guarded by the Jet Arakawa. First time we've really seen him on defense opening up in this tournament. Up top.
Ken Namoto on the mark. Silent in the earlier game we showed. Unable to get the disc on defense, but having a great tournament still for the Japanese. 10 assists, 3 goals on the week.
Bowen looking for Mitchell deep. To the right corner of the end zone. Namoto also there. Mitchell is too tall, reels it in. Great Britain leads 1-0.
And what a find by Bowen. Lofting that one up. Outside in flicked over everybody and dropping it down. Dime ball for the big man. Getting the Britons up 1-0 to start this game.
We expect to see a lot of hucks here from the Great Britain team. That is their style. Talking to the coaches before the start of this tournament, it's really what the style of play they go to. They're very confident with it. They're going to take the risk. They're going to put it deep, and why not? When you have Mitchell, you have Bowen, and you have Ashley Yo on the squad. We'll see here how they do on defense against the frenetic pace of the Japanese, led by Arakawa, the Jet, the speedster. We'll see lots of movement from the Japanese, trying to create space for hucks. They may be undersized, but they are certainly not outmatched in the speed department.
Yeah, the speed of the Japanese, the pace of their play, something you always have to watch for and game plan for. You can never rest when you're guarding a Japanese.
Kawabata to Yuasa. Arakawa as Great Britain tries to come zone. Tanake. Japanese cutting through like butter. Kawabata, Tanake. And here we get the first taste of this pace we were talking about. Quick dish right along the goal line. Nakamura. Looking. Forced to go back. Agata. Dishes it to Yuasa for the goal. Japan ties it up. 1-1 already. No turnovers yet in this game. The wind really just dying down in this afternoon. Great blue skies out here, sun coming out.
And the beautiful assist by Agata. The Japanese just turning this field over left to right. Tying this game up at 1s. And Agata, another one of the big-time players for the Japanese. He's got 10 assists on the tournament prior to this game, make that 11 with this one.
Great opening possession for the Japanese offense, and we'll see if Great Britain can slow them down. I know they have the use of zones under their belt. They used several of them against Canada. So it looks like both teams are going to have no problem scoring early on.
And scoring is not what the Japanese lack. It's all about defense from what we saw earlier in this tournament. The Japanese, when they matched up against the number 1 seed in their pool, Canada, did not get a single break during that whole game.
This pull, and the float down just around the brick mark. Moved on, Winder surveying the field. The poaches, Bowen. As his defender zooms on past, along the sideline. Bowen looking to get it off. First turnover of the game to the Japanese.
Short field to work with here, and they're going to strike quickly. Fast breaking.
Nemoto moving upfield. We haven't seen this Japanese defense so far. Agisako putting it up top. D gets right back. Winder saving the day. Now stuck along the sideline. Looking underneath.
And the Britons slowing down the game. Not a lot of action downfield. A lot of looking. Not a lot of movement.
Time gives this one back. Nemoto giving instructions, trying to pull his offense closer. It isn't that windy compared to this morning, but still a little bit of a crosswind. Japan starts things up.
And they're calling travel. This one's going to come back no matter what happens. The rest of the field doesn't know it yet, but the disc coming back to Nemoto. Travel called on the check-in. They still unaware that no matter what happens right now, the Japanese are getting the disc back, courtesy of the travel call.
And finally, everybody recognizes, and we'll come back.
Nemoto, the team captain here, the only captain for this squad, highly respected by all his teammates, just won a college championship in Japan.
Getting it off the line. Hana looking upfield. Fukimoto. Hana puts it in for the first break of the game, and that's not something we've seen the Japanese be able to do. We have another call, so we're not over yet. Hana. Going to check this disc back in.
There was a lot of action over there, probably a pick call. Nemoto trying to get out again. Calling the foul, though. Got tripped up. His mark, Josh Kime. He and Nemoto getting physical over there. Disc will stay, however, as it did not affect the play.
Hachisako with the disc for the Japanese. And looks like this one's going to go back. Going to tie his shoe. And we'll go back to square one with Hana. 5 yards from the goal line. Japan really loving the precise breaks. You can see how they move the mark. They get out wide. Nice around, gets it back to Nemoto. Inside break for the goal. Big break early on, 2-1. Japan up on Great Britain.
And the energy from the Japanese you can see there. They do that cheer up or down, always focused on keeping their energy in. This one, though, I think a slightly enlonged version, and then you're seeing Nemoto with the smooth inside-out break. Got his cutter overcommitting, showed him forehand way out on the left-hand side, brought it back in, inside for the goal and the 2-1 lead. One of the advantages of being a lefty there, always a little bit different when you're marking up against the lefty handler. And Nemoto, one of the best lefties out here today.
First break we've seen from the Japanese, and our second game that we've broadcasted of them. They did not get a break against Canada. Canada went for the clean sweep on offense.
And this looking like a different team already. Their game plan working effectively right now, which is to keep the speed going, pick the disc up, let's run with it, let's get our passes quick. They want to move the disc before stall 2-3 every single time. They're not looking to hold it. Great Britain taking almost the opposite strategy, where you saw on their turnover where they had little action downfield, and they're looking 4 or 5 seconds deep in the stall count for something to develop downfield.
Mead looking backfield for Dathan. Dathan underneath to Mitchell. Finding Bowen. Great Britain really opening up the middle of the field, trying to get cuts available. Dathan. Time. Haven't seen Alex Brooks here, O-line captain returner from the U23s. Playing actually last year Nationals, international competition, Worlds team. Bowen. Important playmaker. Now underneath, this one floating up. Gonna hang and come down for another turnover. Namoto moving it quickly. Going deep, Arakawa. He's gonna run this one down if it stays in bounds. Can't, tries to go for the greatest.
See if he had the opportunity. He didn't really even try and go for the greatest. I'm not sure he realized he did have another teammate on the inside. And I think just unsure whether he should drag his foot in or go for the greatest, gets nothing. And Bowen takes the timeout. And we're going to take a little timeout too and come back with you after this commercial break.
And we're back here in Toronto, Canada for the first half action of Great Britain versus Japan. I'm Brian Jones here with Kevin Minderhout of Next Gen Network's coverage. Great Britain calling a timeout, trying to settle things down early on. Japan off to a good start, getting the first point on offense and then breaking from there for the 2-1 lead. Great Britain trying to hold. And it just seems like they came into this game a little bit unsettled compared to the start we saw them have against Canada.
And that is exactly why the timeout call by big star on their team, Bowen, is a great idea. The turnovers that the GB team is having right now seem to be one of nerves and execution rather than strategic advantage by the Japanese. The Brits, taller and extremely skilled. The Japanese also extremely skilled. They've got the speed advantage, so it's really just a matter of figuring out a little bit more what the Japanese defense is doing, and for the Britons to just work more methodically and see the open spaces rather than force them.
Well, here they force one in, but it works to Joe Thompson. Thompson waiting for his teammates to catch up. Going backfield, Bowen, normally on the receiving end of a huck. Now handling. Goes inside break to Thompson. Thompson doesn't realize the cutter downfield falls. Defender fell, trying to go up the line. Dropped, and another one for Great Britain. Some unforced errors in this game early on. This one is coming back.
Mitchell calling the foul. Not going to get another look at it, but coming down low, trying to draw it on that throw. I think it was a high stall count.
Inside to Mead. Mead twice in a row. Just looks like he's having confidence issues early on.
And that's a tough throw to complete. The cutter's coming straight at you. You got the mark on. You're trying to throw it inside out or outside in flick for 5 yards. Not a lot of room for error. Makes it really difficult to catch.
Japanese defense trying to move it back around. Able to change the point of attack. Arakawa. Fukumoto. Hachi Soko. Moving over Arakawa. Underneath. Thompson gets the D back. Bowen. Mitchell. Quick dish. Dathan along the line. Reset the disc. Vial almost out the back. Mead gets back in his groove. Ties the game at 2s for Great Britain.
And that goal is one of the common ones that you see with an unexperienced defender only watching their assignment. The face mark, while sometimes a great decision when you're guarding a handler reset, much more difficult when you're downfield. You can't see the disc. If you're a handler and you see that your cutter is standing there and his defensive assignment can't see what you're going to do, all you have to do is put it out around him just like that, and it's an easy goal. The Brits getting the upwind score here, evening out the advantage that the Japanese had just gotten. Again, the wind here not as strong as it was earlier in the day.
Here comes the pull from Great Britain. We'll see Japanese offense attack again. And really here, if you're looking for Great Britain's defense, you're looking for an adjustment that will help them slow down that pace we like to talk about with both Japanese teams. We saw it earlier today in the women's divisions with the Japanese against the Colombians. Kawabata. Horizontal stack, Arakawa going deep. Right away, Japan striking towards the goal line. Up to Yuasa. Yuasa's second goal of this game. Japan goes up 3-2. Great Britain's going to have to take note of Arakawa streaking deep.
And that one, just a classic example of how they use Arakawa. They call him the Jet because that's what he does. He just takes off. He gives this man a little fake, a little juke, and then streaks deep. And too much speed for his defender to keep up with. Arakawa with the assist. Normally making it the full distance, this time a few yards outside the end zone. And giving the touch backhand in for the goal. Japanese getting that upwinder back. Slight advantage going right to left on your screen. That would be the downwind direction.
Great Britain's offense on the field. We have not yet seen Alex Brooks. Right now he's directing things, coming to the line captain here on the O-line. Not sure why he wasn't on the field early on. Was pretty crucial in their great matchup against the Canadians in the showcase field. Winder out there as well. Fast pull. Finds Dathan. Coming in underneath. Parsons. Looking for Bowen. Bowen's shooting deep to Thompson. Triple coverage. Thompson still makes the catch. What a grab. 3-3, all tied up.
And the Brits relying on some playmaking to stay in this game. That one, Thompson sandwiched in between Inamoto and Ishikawa. Neither of them able to get a hand on it. Thomas able to just elevate, come down with it. Squeezing it in, though, still not really getting a lot of offense for the Brits. Forcing them deep, lots of stagnant cutters, and one shot from a standstill. Would like to see the British get a little bit more movement there, a little bit more flow, and get something going.
Kyle Weisbrod tweeting at us, giving us some information here. A little bit of notice, credit him for saying right now, Great Britain horizontal. The cutters are set up way too deep, no good deep looks, able to escape that one with a great play by Joe Thompson. Japanese doing a good job of pressuring the underneath cuts. We see a zone from Great Britain.
And if you're out there, feel free to tweet at us. We're at NGN Ultimate. Or you can tweet directly at Brian.
No_look_Scuba. Here we go, a zone from the Canadians trying to, or excuse me, Great Britain trying to stop the fast break pace that we've seen. Kawabata, Agata, one of the main forces here on the handling line. Nakamura, Tanake, and works out for Great Britain, trying to move it quickly. Simpson, Smith, Aspen, out to space, grab for the goal. Slinger Thompson with the goal. Great Britain gets their break back.
And getting the game back on serve with Slinger Thompson score. It's a good time to point out some of the differences in the GB and the Japanese squad organization. You take a look at the stats from this week already, and you'll see the dispersion of role playing deep into the roster of the British. They got 7 people leading their goals. That's Simpson, Slinger Thompson, and Cartwright, all sitting at 7 goals on the weekend. Bowen is leading with assists, 8 assists, but there's several other guys sitting there, 7, 6, 5 assists, spread out amongst the whole roster. Lots of contribution top to bottom. The Japanese, though, come into the game with a much more top-heavy approach. You're getting guys like Kawabata, Namoto, Arakawa, and Agata, all with 10-plus assists or goals, bearing a major load for the team. So make sure to keep an eye on those. This game will go the way of Arakawa and Namoto, along with Kawabata and Agata. If those guys are having a good game, the Japanese are having a good game. For the English, we'll just see who's having a good game, and they're going to rest on them to take them the whole way home to a victory.
Short pole goes out of bounds, going to give the Japanese good field position. Nakamura taking it from the sideline. One of the things I've noticed here is that Kawabata usually takes the disc at the center of the field for the Japanese. Nakamura here taking it from the sideline. It seems like they're really set in those handler positions. Kawabata dishes it to Arakawa. Quick movement for the Japanese. They tie this game at 4s. Japanese pacing against the man defense has just been too much for Great Britain to handle. I expect we'll see a lot more zone. Arakawa just too much to contain to the 4 side. Great Britain, though, getting beat up line. In that case, have to find a way to stop that handler motion.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the advantages of the Japanese squad is their quick work around the handlers. They've all got really fast steps. They're focused on speed. They're focused on getting to the disc, resetting it, and moving it right away. So if you're a member of the GB team right now, you have to be super active and mentally aware. As soon as he throws the disc, you have to get your weight moving in the right direction. And a lot of that is seeing the field, understanding what's behind you when you're on the mark, and moving accordingly as soon as your assignment gives up the disc, because you know he's going to go right away too.
Japanese getting set to pull. Great Britain's O-line on the field. Winder with Bowen, Mitchell.
Having trouble keeping the disc in bounds this game.
Both squads with short pulls here in the upwind direction.
And the wind not even that strong, that much of a factor compared to what we saw earlier today. We didn't see this much trouble getting them inbound. I think the team's just going for the kill pull, one that's going to hang, float down, give them all kinds of time to set up.
Winder looking deep for Bowen. This one's going to be too far. Deed by the Japanese.
Yamaguchi just jumping the route there, reading the play from the get-go.
Nemoto. Fake steep. Hana. Pick called on the play.
And they're really into calling those travel calls on Nemoto.
Nemoto. Big D, but picked up. Called down.
That was a tough one to see. Everything happening really fast there. We'll see on the replay whether Hana did in fact get this one. Great play by Bowen. And play resuming. Everyone on the field deciding that was up. Great work by the players to keep this game going.
Hachisako. Beautiful upline pass inside. Something Japan excels at with all of their handlers. Underneath, and another tipped disc. Caught yet again. Yamaguchi. Shirakawa. Japan with a little bit of luck on this possession. Nemoto. Out in space, and another bid. Hachisako. Nemoto. Faking hammer going inside. Brooks there. This one overthrown, but caught. No. 3 times. Not a charm for the Japanese.
3 times too many. And everybody on the sideline, you saw the hands go up. You saw Yamaguchi sprinting in to save the day. And just too much roll here.
Great Britain and Alex Brooks are going, what do I need to do to get a turnover here?
Yeah, and on the replay here, it looks like if he'd gone one hand, I think almost a guaranteed completion.
This one's coming back regardless. All the way back to the other side of the field for a prior call. Shirakawa. Shirakawa putting the disc in. Looking for the inside. Another bid by Great Britain. Dathan almost with a hand on it. The around. Hana. Another around, this one high in the air. Nemoto. Flip back to Hana for the around and the score. Great Britain just has to come off that O-line going. We did everything we could to get the disc back.
And Nemoto showing why he's so respected for his team. Take a look at his wrist action and how he manipulates this disc. Don't get to see it there in the replay, but really getting around his mark every way he can. That one actually an off-handed dump for him, little flip pass with the right hand. Nemoto a lefty, but very smooth wrist action, lots of speed on the disc, lots of turn, allowing him to slice and dice through the GB defense.
Great Britain trying to switch things up here on the offensive line, finding a way to score.
And I just got confirmation that the call that brought it back there was a travel. Several of those we've seen so far by the British squad already. That time hurting them a little bit, bringing that turnover back. I think we didn't see that many travels in the Canadian game. I'm wondering if this isn't a deliberate strategy by the British. As the Japanese do move awfully quickly, going left to right on their pivots frequently throughout their possession with the disc.
Japanese pole coming in. Britain trying to respond. We've gone back and forth in this game. Both teams trading breaks. Winder. In a zone, a wide zone here from the Japanese. Great Britain finally recognizing Winder crashing. It's it around, but an overthrow is giving it right back to the British instead of just sitting there and simply giving the easy pass. Player coming in, rushing to, Mead was rushing in. And Vile, instead of taking his time, gives Japanese the disc right in the goal line. This would be a momentum turner. Murata, Nemoto. Flips the inside break, Hobson, not for the goal. Kono ruled not in. Another around break. Great Britain's getting broken left and right. Japan goes up 6-4.
I love those celebrations from the Japanese. They really get into it as a team. And that zone, a very interesting one. It looked like they were leaving the near side on your screen wide open. That one somewhat of a crosswind coming in that direction. If I had to say anything, I would say the wind is going from the right to the back, from the far right to the front left of your screen, ever so slightly. It's been a lot easier to score on that back left cone. But anyway, that zone, leaving him wide open on the near side, looking for a trap, forcing them to throw that one up into the wind, either popping it up or making the flick very difficult to hold stable as the wind picks it when you're looking up to dump on that side. So the zone working exactly as the Japanese had hoped. Now a timeout for the Brits. It worked last time. We'll see if it works this time.
Yeah, they have to take some time here to regroup. It's just been unsettling here for the Great Britain team. Come out and try to go with their set plays and try to go deep, and Japan has just absolutely been ready for it. Preparation by the Japanese for this game. They've gotten the turnovers more so early going. However, Great Britain has been able to respond, and we'll see here what comes out of this timeout. They're going to have to stay a little bit more patient. They do have the size advantage against the Japanese, which means they're going to also be given the unders. Time for Great Britain to settle down, be a little bit more patient from their handlers. Credit the Japanese for pushing Great Britain into a pace they're not ready to play at this point in time.
Well, and this Japanese team looking like a totally different one than we saw against the Canadians. Much more confident and just spot on. They're not shooting nearly as much as they did earlier. This time out taking an awfully long time. Lots to discuss. We just heard the scorekeepers over here give a little whistle, alert the teams. Now is the time. Britain out of timeouts already. 6-4, down 2, receiving, going downwind.
Not a terrible position to be in. They do have to get back into this game. Japan definitely with the edge.
And the body language of the GB team, a little bit quiet, if I had to pick a word. Not moving too quickly back to that line. I would say a little frustrating when Bowen comes in, gets a couple great Ds using his length, only for the Japanese to have somebody there scooping up the garbage.
Yeah, that's one of those things that can just hurt your morale. But when we talked to Great Britain before the Canadian matchup, they just talked about confidence and how much they needed it going into the game. And here it seems like they're just a little bit shell-shocked by the energy that Japan is bringing. We'll have to see how they respond. And here's their chance coming out of the timeout.
And Kono set to pull. Kono, one of those guys, last time we saw them against Canada, wasn't available, had an exam to take. So I'm sure the Japanese glad to have him back. He's
big presence there for the D-line. Winder to Brooks. Huge catch D by Yamaguchi. He's been all around making play after play. Nemoto calls the timeout, and the Japanese are excited for Yamaguchi.
And what's not to be excited about after that? Going the full distance and catching it. And that was a fine play by the young man. And you could see it developing from a long distance away. You saw Yamaguchi read the thrower, see his defensive assignment, and lock in.
Did a great job there, but Great Britain is just telegraphing their moves. Something is just, right now the Japanese are just ready for every single thing that Great Britain is trying to do on offense. It's been this way for the last 3 possessions. Great Britain defense has played decently well at times. Been able to force that turn. I'd love to see them throw some more zone. Be able to slow down this Japanese, but when you're reeling from always turning over the disc on offense, you don't get that chance, and so you just need to find a way to get one.
And Nemoto calling the timeout after the D. I'm not sure it was necessary, but I wait with interest to see what kind of play they're going to run coming out of the timeout. They've got 6 in the stack. Nemoto alone. I'm going to look for the front 2 of the stack going, splitting left and right, or both going in the same direction. Let's see what happens.
No poaching by Great Britain. I don't necessarily think the timeout was a great call, but we'll see how it works out. Nemoto trying to go around, losing yards. Hachisako, Kono. Back for Hachisoko. Kono. Looking for Nemoto. Hachisoko up the line, Nemoto. Dishes it for the score to Kono. 3-man handlers working it around. 7-4. Japan leads. It just looks like that Great Britain may have the height advantage, but the quickness of that D-line is too much for them to handle at this point in time.
Well, I thought it was a very good defensive stand by the British, but Nemoto just dashing across. And I believe that was Winder unable to keep up with him. Kono gets the goal. Nemoto gets his 2nd assist of the game. The Japanese take the 3-point lead.
We're moving towards halftime here if Great Britain doesn't right the ship soon.
And they need to be careful about this one. They don't want to go down 2 upwind breaks. If Japan can rattle off 2 quick scores here, you're going to really like their position going into the second half. I will say that 2 points, even a 9-4 lead is not safe with this GB team. This GB team is a legitimate contender at this tournament. And anytime you have a legitimate contender, the deficit is always overcomable.
Well, how many times so far this tournament in the games that we've done have we seen the team down make it a game? We saw that with Team Canada yesterday with the women. We saw it with Team Colombia today in another game in the women's division. We saw it with Germany early on. Thought the USA might run away with a 3-point lead and go on with that. Germany able to take half 9-8 before eventually, losing that game. Saw it with this Great Britain team. These teams here don't have anything to lose. They have a couple games a day. And Great Britain trying to respond. Brooks going deep, double coverage yet again. This one peeling out of bounds and not caught. Another turnover, but a call on the play.
Let's take a look at it. We had Arakawa and Inamoto in the area, And I don't think the contact caused the drop. To me, it looked like Pauli had already dropped it, slips out of his hands. That's not the contact. That's just a tough catch, trying to go up two-handed. They're going to talk about this for a while, going to send it back. And so frustrating as a defense in this situation where even though you can test it, you can't do anything to overturn that call.
Going back to Brooks, marked by Kono.
Either way, that is not the way for the British to get back into this game.
Let's go, White, let's go! Do it right, White!
Trying to do it with one pass. Brooks now underneath. Holly trying to dish it off. Not caught, but foul called. This one coming back. Looking for Thompson.
And Inamota giving him a little smile, saying, hey, you got me on that one.
Holly looking upfield. Gets it off the line to Brooks. Brooks fitting it in. Great pressure here from the Japanese. Mitchell rolls it right into the poach Inamoto.
Yeah, fantastic defense by the Japanese. As you said, pressuring everything.
Kono. Arakawa. Shayikawa. Back to Kono. Just again, watch this quick pace here. Hana. Not much time between throws from the Japanese. Not looking and staring. Just hitting the first open person they can see. Looking for that movement. Achisako. Big bid. Playing through it. Inamoto.
I think the Japanese could use a timeout right now. They're having a little bit trouble downfield.
Moving it upfield. Achisoko, yes, and we see it combined here. Offensive line, D-line unit. Kono putting up for Arakawa. Gets up, has it in his hand. Can't make the grab. Defensive pressure was there.
And very interesting to note on this one and the one by, I believe, it was Kawabata earlier in the end zone. Excuse me, no, it was Yamaguchi back here in the end zone. That one got called back on a travel, as it turned out. But both of those going two-handed, I think if they'd gone one, both times they would have come up with completions. Why go up two-handed when you got a guy on your back? You need to catch it as high as you can. The one hand, always the best way to get up there, catch it at your apex. You get the second hand involved when you're not relaxed, going two-hand with the alligator catch. If they're not working in unison, one's going to be disrupting the other. And I think that's what happened there. Arakawa showing some excellent lift, but not coming down with it.
Great Britain needs to change the point of attack and get it off the line, throwing through a bunch of poaches. Thompson putting this one out to space. Around Yo. Holly. Underneath. Finding Mitchell. Inside break. Giant layout, but we have an injury.
And that one, full extension. And would have been a hero's grab. But it looks like he came down on the right knee. And that would have been the play of the day, I think, Brian, had he completed that. That went up. I was almost positive it wasn't coming down in the hands of a British offender.
Ashley Yo is making some big plays so far for the Great Britons. Japan, though, going to get another chance to break.
I'm watching Arakawa here. Holding down the two position in the stack from left to right.
No help for his defender. Off to the races, going deep. Out in front, Arakawa. Just too far for even the Jet.
But boy, is he fast. He almost made that one playable, and that one was coming off hot. He needed a yo-like bid to save that one.
Martin Hall back to pick up the disc. Thompson in the middle. Trying to find Mitchell. Injury called on the play. Inamata after a collision.
Inamata having a great game out there, silently but surely getting it done defensively. One of those guys that's really pressuring his assignment, making it difficult for them out in the lane.
Martin Hall surveying, looking for the dump. Gets it in. Smith gets it off, but turnover. Look down at my sheet for a second, and Japan has the disc on the goal line.
Yeah, that was a case of looking before catching.
Puts it in for the score to Hana, and that's 8-4 Japan, and this just doesn't seem like Great Britain's day.
The Japan are just playing a fantastic brand of Ultimate right now. Very high retention rate around the disc, and when they're turning it over, they're making the Brits go the full 70.
Great Britain having problem with the resets. Cutters are not able to get open. A lot of credit here to the Japanese defense.
And they are all smiles, as they should be. Up 4 against the big-time GB squad. The GB squad coming in to this game 4-1. That only loss coming to the Canadians in the showcase game on Sunday. And sitting at number 2 in their pool. After them, the Austrians, and then the Japanese sitting at 3-2. The Austrians also have 4-1. We'll talk a little bit about why the Austrians are where they are after this point. As Kono sets up to pull, again, a key piece that was missing last time we saw the Japanese. There's still one more piece that's not here, and that's Gaku Genshima. Represented Japan at the 2012 World Ultimate Guts Championships, and he is a true stud. Will add a lot to this team that's top-heavy as it is when he gets into this tournament later in the week.
Loose 4-man cup from Japan. Hammer over the top. Bit along the sideline, but out of bounds. And Japan, a chance to take half right here. D-line's got a lot of work. Going down 4-3. Japan has been in an absolute tear. Yamamoto from Murata puts it in. Just so used to those tight spaces. Japan so good with their execution. Yamamoto out to space. Kono, Yamamoto. Yamamoto looking for the around. Physical mark from Great Britain. Dathan. Great Britain, though, just playing catch-up in every single aspect of this game. At this point in time, Yamamoto.
Some confusion in the stack, calling it back. Counts coming in at 0.
Yamamoto dishes it back. Kono, and that's for half. 9-4, Japan goes up on Great Britain.
And not the way we expected this game to go. But boy, is it exciting watching the Japanese play. You mentioned their ability to sneak them in to the small space, and that, Brian, it's all about wrist action.
Great Britain's going to have to find a way to respond in the second half. Going to be difficult to figure out what's going to happen in Group B. If Great Britain goes on to lose this game, Japan with a loss to Austria, Canada well ahead of the pack, but that order of finish and who faces who going into the bracket, this could be impacted greatly. Japan with still a chance now with a win over Great Britain to take second in the pool, back where they should be. But we'll see what happens in the second half. 10-minute break here. Brian Jones for Kevin Minderhout. This is Next Gen Network's coverage of the U23 World Championships. And we're back here in Toronto, Canada. I'm Brian Jones here with Kevin Minderhout. Next Gen Network's coverage of the 2013 U23 World Championships. Japan up 9-4. And the first half has been all Japan. Ken Nemoto, an absolute superstar in this game, just directing traffic for the Japanese. Three-man handler game, been so excellent. And Japan coming out with the receiving for the start of the second half. Just gives them another edge. But here we see a zone by Great Britain, led to one of their few breaks of the game. Nakamura, we have not seen his name much as a result of the offense being off the field. Agata, Arakawa, Kawabata, Nakamura up the line. Really just helps Japanese move it up the line. In for the goal, just like that, decimating that zone. 10-4, Japan leads.
And Agata adding a goal to his assist in this game. Let's talk a little bit about what Great Britain needs to do. You saw them, well, you didn't see them, but Brian and I saw them at halftime, getting together, running some drills, working on their offensive set. And right now, it's really just all about the inability of the GB offense to produce. We're going to take a quick look at a possession here to illustrate that. Here it is. Here's the setup. The problem with the GB offense is how deep they are. You'll see on your screen coming in here, Pauli, too deep when he starts his cut, unable to get it. They're going to spend a lot of time only to get a single backhand flip up the line for 2 yards.
Great Britain has not had much going with them. On offense, wind here still pretty steady, around 10 to 15 miles an hour. Sun hiding behind the clouds. Been a cooler day than recent mugginess after a storm blew through yesterday. Pull from Japan's going to give Great Britain a brick. We'll see if they can get anything going to start off this second half.
Let's go, boys. Let's get up there.
Great Britain trying to get some energy from the sidelines, but it seems the only thing that's going to get back in this game is a big play. Japan has been outplaying them in almost every facet of the game from the second half of the first half. See if this trend continues. Winder from the sideline. Winder looking for the option, puts it to the back corner. Deed by Japan. No look at the dump. I've got to think that right now, Great Britain is just not fundamentally sound in this game. Kime was back for Winder. Winder just searching. Just completely the opposite of the Japanese, who are just hitting the first open person they see. Achisako getting the disc back.
And the Japanese starting their stack nice and close to the handlers, contrasting to the British stack that we had the example of earlier, where they were about 20-25 yards deep. This allowing the Japanese cutters to make a legitimate deep cut.
Nemoto going deep from the handler position, clearing out, getting some motion, but An overthrow gives it right back to the Brits. Thompson picking this up. Some confusion from Great Britain. Thompson putting it up for Mitchell. Comes down with it for Great Britain. They get on the board after a huge run by the Japanese. Japanese with a 7-1 run now. So Great Britain finally stops the bleeding. 10-5, Japan leads.
And this Japanese team coming in 3-2 to this game. Their losses occurring to Canada and Austria. And you have to wonder what Japanese team took the field against Austria if they were playing like this, or how good is Austria? Austria has yet to play GB. The only team in this pool undefeated right now is Canada, and they're sitting at 6-0. And Austria playing primarily the lower seed, sitting at 4-1, just below GB. That game is going to be very illuminating and going to be very indicative of what happens and how this pool plays out, who's going to be playing who in the quarters. The question then is how good is Austria, because the Japanese, the way they're playing now, the way that Arakawa leads his team,
and
they're definitely for real.
There's no rest for the Riri in this case, where Arakawa is just setting it deep, going deep. Japan striking right back, not giving Great Britain any kind of ability to gain any momentum in the second half. 11-5. And just so far, I mean, the score looks like it feels further away than the score is. It feels like Japan is just taking control of this game, and that Great Britain is at the whim of Japan. So can they get lucky and throw up a pass in the end zone there a couple of times from 10 yards out and see what happens?
I would expect the GB team to keep shooting. It seems to be the only thing that's worked for them so far. We saw it earlier. We saw it just 1 point prior to this. I think the real thing when they're taking those shots is they need to get them in motion. They're doing them in 4, 5, 6 in the stall count rather than catching, getting that power position, squaring up, and making a good throw. Right now it's just a game of 50-50. Bias slightly in the GB favor due to the height advantage. But it's not consistent team ultimate, which the British played against the Canadians and have clearly been playing against the other teams with their 4-1 record, would show, putting out relative blowouts on Mexico 17-2, France 17-7, New Zealand 17-13.
Bowen looking deep, just too far. I like the different look from Great Britain, but that's ill-advised shot right there from the sideline. You have tons of space open in front of you. Yes, you can take the deep look, but right there's no one else there. Just wait for a cutter to come into that space.
It's almost like throwing in the flag there when there's not even a look. I thought if you're going to huck it, at least put it up in the air. You don't want to overshoot it here.
Instead, Japan will have another chance at an upwind break. Being forced backhand. Not much movement from the start. Looking up for Nomoto, getting right back to Great Britain. Out in front for the easy goal. Great Britain get some cheers and support from the crowd.
There's a small contingent over there crossing the pond to root on the Queen's royal team. Poli with the goal. A little bit of aggressive spiking there, Brian. Venting perhaps of some frustration with his team going down in a very big way so far in this game. The Japanese need to be careful, though, to not let up. They need to keep firing. They need to keep that consistent pace going, and they need to keep the GB squad down. As we talked about earlier, when you have two contenders on the field, there really is no deficit that's too big to overcome, especially here under the WFDF rule set where there's no hard cap. This game is not over until a team scores the requisite amount of points. If they finish within the 100-minute soft cap limit, that will be 17. Otherwise, we'll add 2 to the score, and we'll play until somebody reaches that point total. The Britons equally capable of putting on a 7-0 run, 8-0 run to get back in this game.
I think really if you're Great Britain here, you've got to do a couple of different things. You're coming out of a man defense. First of all, you got to stop Arakawa's initial cut deep, and then you have to stop the upline handler movement. Going deep right away for Yuasa, reels it in. Great Britain just can't do anything. Do something. Clog the lane, poach, force middle, anything right now, straight up to stop Japan's initial play and then go. It's just a lot to deal with, and right now you got to give the Japanese credit because they're forcing the issue, and no matter what Great Britain's done, it just hasn't worked.
And a great bit of deception there to send Yuasa deep. Normally you expect Arakawa to go deep, and we haven't even seen Yuasa. We haven't been calling his number very much this game. A very good decision indeed. And that play out of the middle of the stack off the pole is something they run very often. So all you teams out there scouting the Japanese, you're going to want to make sure to stop that pole play.
They were aware of Arakawa, but it didn't matter. 12-6, Japan doubling the score here of Great Britain.
And the adjustment, not terribly complicated there on that play. Really all you need is a deep offside defender slacking off. The Japanese haven't been going over the top, per se. Normally when they cut the field back left to right, it's going to be with the handlers and not over the top to a cutter.
Great Britain still shooting deep, trying to undercut. Ali comes down with it. Long spike. Great Britain at least is finding some success on offense. They're going to need more than that to get back in this game.
And Nomoto got a bad read here as he tried to undercut Pauli. And Pauli trying to do a one-man show so far this second half and will his team back into the game.
She's going to need to see something here from the Great Britain defense. Not convinced they're going to be back in this game without changing something up. Japanese offense has been well prepared for both running the short game, initiated by handler movement, or taking even the stagnant huck from a set pole play.
Here we go, one. Let's go, GP.
Nakamura to Kawabata. Straight up marking here from Great Britain. Immediately Kawabata. Nakamura. Kawabata receives it back. It's him and Nakamura right now. Great Britain, though, trailing. Just everybody out in front. But it works. Great Britain able to get the turnover. Smith. And D gets it right back. Nakamura lays out in front of Great Britain receiver. Kawabata. I'm going to leave it for Nakamura. Vertical stack. Lefty backhand gets it started off. Kawabata. Inside to Arakawa. Goal for the Japanese. 13-7. 4 points away from victory. I know you said no lead is too big for someone to come back, but unless Great Britain is going to make any adjustments.
Well, I actually thought if the GB squad could have converted this one, they might have had a chance. It looked like when that turnover came, they were feeling a little bit of energy. They just had the bad decision making. And the Japanese and Kawabata step out, break it in to really do, as you said, take this game into the unrecoverable zone. That was Arakawa's third goal of this game, 1 assist.
Japan getting set to pull.
And the GB team on the sideline absolutely falling apart right now.
GB working it against this zone along the line.
But Powley,
Parsons reels it in. Great Britain's offense working better now.
and Powley's a stand-up player that has the ability. I think that if there's any hope right now, it's going to be what he's bringing and the energy and the work that he's putting out there, recognizing that this is still a game. It's not over until the Japanese reach 17.
(13-8), Japan leading. We'll see if Great Britain can make any adjustments to get themselves back in this game.
And I'll give an adjustment to start with, and it's on the mark. The Japanese have been very successful in breaking inside. They haven't been nearly as dangerous breaking outside. If they do break outside, it's normally for a flat swing, which can be covered for by overcommitting, coming around, stopping it afterwards. I would be mostly concerned with the inside outs of the Japanese right now and making sure we're not overcommitting, have them break you around.
Nakamura moving around here, and some transition defense here from the Great Britain's. Nakamura. Kawabata. Looking backfield, Agata. Nakamura. Physical marking. And even then, too, if you're the adjustment, I agree with you, has to come on the mark, but how tight they are, if they're so tight, that's going to play right in the Japanese hands. They know all these teams are going to have a physical advantage against them in terms of height. They're going to expect that physical play, and they're going to counter it with the breaks. If you take a step off, you're able to go ahead and take away the inside and also even guard against the around. But it needs to start there. Finding the open Arakawa yet again along the sideline. Japan goes up 14-8.
And Bowen making a bit of an error there with this bid. Gave Arakawa lots of time, created lots of confusion as they're on the goal line. And Bowen is on the ground. You can't leave a guy just standing there wide open. The GB team has to assess the situation, pick up the most dangerous threats first, and they forget Arakawa and leave him in the back. Arakawa collecting his 4th goal and showing why he's so valuable to this Japanese team.
Great Britain's offense has been able to trade with the Japanese for the last several possessions. Molly being one of those bright spots in the second half for Great Britain. Really, what does this mean, though, for Group B when it comes down to it? Austria beating Japan. Japan right now beating Great Britain. Expected Great Britain to maybe contend for that 2 seed after their game against Canada.
Well, if Austria can win out, we'll see 3 teams sitting at 5 and 2, assuming that everybody else here wins out. And then it's all about point differential. So this does have a great deal of meaning for GB. You do not want to be the number 4 seed in your pool.
They end up playing the Americans in quarters.
Not only that, but you have an extra game. You have a 4-5 crossover with the A pool, and you're already at a disadvantage. This B pool playing 6 games each as opposed to the 5 in Pool A. That one due to the fact that there are 13 teams registered at this tournament, and it's extremely difficult to turn 13 into an odd number or any other number for that matter. One of our fantastic prime numbers. And number 34, not a prime number with the disc, though, getting the disc back into play.
The second half brought to you by the number 13. Kono back to Nomoto. Shirakawa. Nomoto. Ishikawa, Japanese still moving at the same pace. Great Britain here has this O-line has definitely amped up the defense, as we've seen earlier on in the first half when we thought Great Britain might turn the tide. They did lead 4-3. Calling the play, Nomoto and Brooks discussing.
And really nothing to discuss there. Brooks has his arm out there in an illegal position. Nomoto trying to pivot around, and Brooks just hacks him. Should be coming in at 0.
And these marks trying to get extra close and intimidate Japanese throwers. Drop going to give it back to Great Britain.
You know, you'd obviously like to see Japan convert that one.
Going deep for Yo. Comes up with it for the score. Japan now leading 14-9. Ashley Yo, another one of the big playmakers on the squad.
He took an injury sub earlier on what was a crazy bid out of nowhere, but back on the field to do it again here. Keep in the GB squad on life support. Still looking for a spark. They're doing it with their plays right now, though, Brian. I'm not going to say that their play is in any way pretty, but it's getting it done.
But it's the GB way, and we've talked about this before. Great Britain is going to take those shots. They're going to take their chances. They just found ways to take the right chance, not throw into double and triple coverage, and they've done it off a transition after a couple of other moves.
Reminiscent of the Australian style of play internationally, where they're living and dying by the abilities of some big, tall receivers to go up and get the disc. Sort of a brute force strategy to the game.
Kawabata, Japanese clearing out for the around. Bowen giving chase. Yuasa going deep for Arakawa. Safely reels this one into the breadbasket. 15-9, Arakawa showing again why he's one of the top players at this tournament. Short in stature, big in heart, fast in speed. Runs this one down.
And Yuasa putting up an absolute perfect pass. You went up, and from here you thought, that is a piece of art. There was no way anybody was going to get a touch on that other than Arakawa. And this, again, the second time in the last 2 or 3 points that Arakawa has come down and is just being chased by 2 GB defenders, showing that their offside guys are not helping out effectively on Arakawa. You've got to recognize he's there. You're guarding the 4 from left to right in the stack. If you're guarding the 4, you really need to get out in the lane and be ready for that throw. You can't be coming in late when Arakawa's assignment is already beat. You're the last line of defense.
Looks like Japanese were taking a page out of Canada's set playbook, flooding one side to the other and reversing field from a host stack position. What you do is they take 2 cutters, have them come in and sweep over to the break side, leaving the open side completely free for isolation. Japan here coming out with a zone, trying to slow the pace down for GB. Bowen. Time. Puts it off to Brooks. Brooks pointing for the hammer. Time.
And shifted into man now. That one started with a little bit of a rabbit, just a one-man chasing band.
Brooks putting this up for Bowen. Too high, but trailing the play is Yo. Second consecutive goal. 15-10, Japan leads.
And you get the sense that the Japanese are not too worried here. As that time we saw Kawhi out there. We haven't seen a lot of Kawhi playing in this game. They're trying to get some rest for their big dogs on the defensive end, making sure they get it done offensively.
And why not? You're 2 points away from victory, leading 15-10. All you have to do is trade out with your offense. It's going to go your way.
And it looks like the GB squad taking a timeout. We're going to go ahead and take a quick timeout too and be back with you for the rest of the game after this commercial break.
We're back here in Toronto, Canada for continuing coverage of the U23 World Championships. I'm Brian Jones here with Kevin Minderhout, bringing you the closing moments of Japan versus Great Britain. Japan up 15-10. Just a spectacular performance by them. But first, a word by our sponsors.
Elemental Technology providing the encoding power for today's game, delivering video to screens everywhere in the world. Thank you very much, Elemental. And for those of you that missed this game, earlier on it was tight until about 4-4, and then the Japanese just ran away, putting down a 7-1 run. And the British squad has just not been able to mount a serious comeback and are now trading goals on the downwind side. That's right to left on your screen. This game all but over. Practically a formality unless the GB squad can work some magic.
Yuasa. Tanake. Call on the play. Yuasa's been making his own impact on this game. Several layouts for scores.
I do like the game Yuasa's been playing. He's been filling a role for the Japanese and doing a very, very nice job on it.
15-10, Japan just needing 2 more.
And this call game is the kind of game that really got GB out of the rhythm in the first place. It was when the call started amping up that Japan went on the run.
Right from the start, Great Britain, though, unsettled in here, just have not been able to stop this Japanese offense from doing anything that they've wanted. Agata here on the end line, behind the thrower. Going to give it back to GB. Maybe speak too soon. Bowen picking up the disc. Underneath. Good continuation up the field. Brooks. Looking deep. This one's going to hang. Defender closing in. Yo, though, coming up. Third consecutive go for Ashley Yole. 15-11. Great Britain within 4 and a little bit of surge.
And Nakamura reading the attempted D by Arakawa, but unable to get past the long arms of Ashley Yu. So Britain within 4 here, getting the upwind break. If Japan cannot put this one in, we might actually have a game here.
Japan also going against the wind. It's picked up here just what maybe Great Britain needed. Both teams here with high amounts of skill. Great Britain got back to what they did well, just executing on those hucks, expecting big plays and getting them.
Very skilled and also high expectations for each team.
Cartwright with the assist. Thomas Cartwright seeing Ashley Yo, knowing what Yo is capable of. Coming in from Smith.
The British sideline starting to get energized.
It's the loudest they've been all game long. Nakamura, a little bit of poaching. Some communication here. For the first time, the Japanese aren't moving it incredibly quickly. Nakamura, Kawabata, Yuasa. You can tell, though, Great Britain is tired here trying to play some of their top guys right into the hands of Bowen. Shooting deep, hanging fist for Smith. Nakamura there. Almost into the hands of Smith.
And that one just too difficult of an angle for Smith to bring down. Bowen with a bit of a laissez-faire approach and just sort of stepping out and putting it up. Very little care to what kind of throw he put up there. He just saw his guy going deep and put it out on the line.
Kawabata saying it went out of bounds in the middle of the end zone.
And Japan can put this game away with the upwind score. There's still a long way to go, though. 70 yards standing in their way. And the British defense has really clamped down.
Just above Arakawa, this wind. Yo coming up with it. Cartwright. Mitchell putting this up for Yo. Can he do it again for the 4th time? Yo, did he get it in? Yes, for the goal. Great Britain. Oh, just premature on the celebration. Some arguing going on. Let's see if we got a good shot of that one. Mitchell.
Oh, Aikida calling for the strip. I think he has some basis there. And they're going to send it back. Taking one more look at it. I think Akita does get in here. Who gets it first? I think Akita might have something to say. Unable to prove his contact due to the barrel roll. And still the GB squad just shooting almost aimlessly. It might be the right recipe, though, is
Aspen, Bowen. Need all the energy he can get here. Hopefully a well-deserved rest. Looking back for Aspen. Gonna take a shot. Hanging a blade up. Big grab by Thomas Cartwright. Let's play ball, says Great Britain. 15-12.
And it is a haphazard comeback by the British. Emboldened by the deep.
If it works, don't fix it.
Well, I think they were having trouble getting anything to work. So they gave up trying and just started throwing up the sky ball. And right now they're winning the 50-50 game. Japan calling a timeout. Assuring their players all we have to do is score 2 more in the downwind direction. We can outlast the 50-50 game and take this one home. The Pool B situation gets a lot less messy if the Great Britain pull off an amazing comeback. If they don't, they're still going to be happy they made this run, because there's a very good chance we'll end up with 3 teams at 5-2. Those 3 teams being Japan, Great Britain, and Austria.
It's been a lot of energy here. If we go back kind of recapping the game, Japan comes out, gets a couple of breaks early on. Great Britain responds, gets a break back of their own. Looks like Great Britain is going to trade here with Japan. We're going to see ourselves the game we expected to see right now. And then all of a sudden, Japan just had that energy, had that surge. It seemed like Great Britain was going through the motions. I don't know if they read into Japan's loss to Austria or if they just came off and only had that surge for Team Canada. Whatever it was, Great Britain just did not start this game on the right foot with drops, miscommunications, the stack being too deep. Everything just wasn't working well. And now Japan, as much as we've liked their game, has suffered a couple of execution errors of their own. They haven't looked as crisp with their execution, their throws, and just been a little bit fine, a little bit over the top. The wind has definitely helped Great Britain in this instance, creating more turnovers and more chances. We'll see if they can stop the deep game of Japan.
And GB within 3, but they still have to go 2 upwind breaks before they have a chance of even overcoming the Japanese squad.
Their defense has been better of lately, though. They've come in with the poaching. They've switched off. They've stopped the initial Japanese look. For the first time, you've seen the Japanese forced to hesitate and then go into their fast-moving pace. You've made them uncomfortable, and it's not been by being overly more physical. It's here by poaching and giving a different look and forcing them to think. Arakawa coming up with the huge grab near the sideline. Kawabata. Japanese getting a little bit of playmaking of their own. Kawabata inside break. You cannot get beat up line against the Japanese Nakamura. Brooks calling him not in.
And giving him a little help with the left hand, guiding him back to the line. Call in the back of the stack. That was Bowen. Marking number 23, Akita. Japan inches away from really making this a hard comeback for GB. The disc in the hands of Nakamura.
Looking for the flip for the goal. And yes, Kawabata comes down with it. They're surviving some contact. 16-12, Japan. 1 point away from closing this off.
And not the smooth, fluid type of score that we've seen from the Japanese. But they don't really need it. They did all the work so much earlier in the game. They haven't had to be pinpoint here. And Kawabata making the acrobatic grab. To take the 4-point lead. Japan 16, GB 12. GB working downwind now, right to left. Trying to get within 3. In order to stay alive in this game, they will have to get this point on offense and then go with 3 breaks in a row. No room for error, 100% focus, 100% commitment to not turning the disc over. Not really in touch with the style that has brought them here, which is just put the disc up and come down with it. We'll see if the math works out for the GB squad with Inamoto set to pull.
Every point counts here, as we've talked about, though, with that point differential in Group B, possibly deciding who has to go on for that 4-5 play-in matchup and then play the Americans, which would be a tall task to ask any of these squads. Brooks going deep, but nobody's looking, and Japan's going to have the opportunity. Brooks just prematurely throwing it deep. Now Great Britain is going to have to play different defense, and the wind has dropped to basically nothing. And give an advantage here to this Japanese D-line. 16-12.
We haven't seen a lot from Namoto here, so a big opportunity for him to step up and seal this victory for his team.
Namoto dishes it off, gets it back in the center. Hashisako. Movement here. Namoto looking deep.
Kawabata.
Reels it in on the goal line.
Excuse me, Yamaguchi.
Yamaguchi making play after play. Hashisako. Dish for the score. Layout grab. That one's in. Japan wins 17-12.
And Hana, in exciting style, as the last 2 points for Japan have been. Here we see Yamaguchi pointing for it. Bring it in with 2. And then Hana
Kaku Hana
getting horizontal and sealing the victory for the Japanese.
Now this score 17-12. We saw Great Britain have a much better second half. They went toe-to-toe with Japan, and you've got to think, if you play this game over, maybe Great Britain gets off on a better foot, but you had to like the energy Japanese brought in the beginning and just were relentless on defense, and that D-line was efficient going through the rest of the game.
And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit in saying that the Great Britain's, while they scored more points in the second half, did not necessarily have a better second half. They were just putting the ball up, coming down with 50-50s, and it was the reason why the comeback that they seemed to mount was never that threatening, because the game plan was not one that really would allow them to come in and put in that 3-break run that they were going to require to do there at the end. The question being, when you go from loose to tightening up, can you make that transition? And I don't think they were prepared to do that. As you saw there on that turnover, the miscommunication, the deep receiver there opting to change the game plan, the thrower sticking with it, and GB unable to mount the miracle comeback. Finishing this game with 12 points, Japan 17.
Well, that'll be all. We'll be back later on tonight then, 7 p.m. Showcase game, USA versus Colombia in the open division. Colombia, the 2 seed in that pool, looking to take on the heavyweight favorite. The Americans undefeated so far. For Kevin Minderhout, I'm Brian Jones. This is Next Gen Network's coverage of the U23 World Championships.